first thing is I of course knew he was not doing very well, so I had called in several times during the evening. I was actually due to come in at 11 o'clock for an overnight shift. I called about 6 o'clock, and he was sitting down to dinner, and I thought that was a good sign. So then I went about my business and called about, I guess it was about 7:30, and talked to Andy. And Andy told me on the phone that he was about the same, but they had gone ahead and taken him upstairs. And I asked Andy if I should come on in to help out, because sometimes you needed a few other people around when he was having a bad time. And I heard Andy say, well, I don't think there's much you can do. But in the background, I heard Susan say, if she wants to come on in, have her come on in. And so I took that, Susan being an RN, gave me the feeling that there was something up, that I needed to come in and either help or just be there. So I got my things together and went on over to the house. At this time, it was about 7:45 or maybe about 8.
Susan had not been working there for very long.
Susan had been there about a month and a half, maybe 2 months at the time. I'm not sure about those dates, but she hadn't been there very long. And of course, Andy had been there a while, but they were still kind of the new kids on the block. And so when I came in, I went on upstairs, and I came over to, as I always had, over to Dr. Wells' bedside, and I put my hand in his, and I said, "Hello, Dr. Wells," and he opened his eyes. He had his oxygen mask on and was obviously having trouble breathing. He looked at me. He actually looked into my eyes, and he squeezed my hand, and I said, "I'm here." And he kind of, if he could have smiled, I know he would have. I could see the smile in his eyes toward me. He recognized me. He knew who I was. I could tell that. The other two, Susan and Andy, I could tell from Susan's face, I knew that she, being a nurse, knew that this was coming to an end. I could tell, just his difficulty in breathing. The report she gave me said, she told me that she had ordered a suction machine to hopefully be able to help him breathe better. And she was just sure that, I could tell that she didn't actually say, this is it, or, we're looking at things. I asked her if she'd called Dr. Creek, and I don't think she had at that point called him. So I called Dr. Creek, and I told him that he needed to be coming over. Andy was clueless, which was a blissful thing for him, because he didn't know what was about to happen. I think I felt it because I'd been with my grandmother when she died, and there's a feeling, there's a whether it's a presence or what in the room, but when someone's about to pass away, you can feel there's just a, I don't know if I want to say vibe or what, but there's something about it. And I talked to him. He was responsive. I mean, he didn't speak, obviously, because he couldn't. He would kind of nod his head if, a question was asked. I told him, this is all going on, and it's about 8:30, 8:40.
Had he eaten dinner?
Yes, and they reported to me that he had eaten some dinner, had eaten a few bites of soup, and then had eaten some ice cream, which of course was his favorite, a few bites of that. and then he just couldn't eat anymore. But he had taken in his favorite vanilla ice cream, a bite or two, to before they had taken him up. And then he asked to go upstairs, and I think Susan realized that he needed to lay down. He's of course been on oxygen for weeks.
So when you came in, he was now upstairs. It was after dinner?
It was after dinner. He was upstairs in his bed. Again, the full face mask of oxygen. I don't know if Susan had administered any meds at this point, as far as pain relieving meds, or sometimes he would get different medications to help alleviate the panic with the breathlessness. But with a congestive heart failure, you get the breathless feeling, and then you get a panic. And sometimes you would take or receive a shot of what is it that he was? I've forgotten. What was the shots that it was? A pain medication. I've totally lost the name of the medication, but it's a
Darvocet?
Yeah, Darvocet. Yeah, a shot of that too. It helps relieve the anxiety associated with the loss of breath. He seemed to be fairly calm for he was not in a distress. I think he realized that he was about to pass away. I recall calling Dr. Creek again and telling him that it was imminent, that he was going to pass away. This was, of course, about 8:40. I remember Susan was trying to, I don't know what she was, being busy nurse around. I don't know. We were talking to him and holding his hand. Andy was on one side, I was on the other. I did tell him, I said to him, I said, Dr. Wells, I want you to know that everyone who has ever known you and ever worked for you and ever been in your presence loves you dearly. And I did tell him that before he died. And he squeezed my hand again. Andy was on the other side, and it was obvious at this point he was slipping away. His pulse rate was slowing, his oxygen rate was diminishing, and he was obviously, after you go so long without oxygen or go to a low point where you're not getting enough oxygen, you slip into not necessarily a coma, but just that pre-death, area that I don't know if it's classified as a coma, but you lose your consciousness, I guess. And Andy was on the other side and holding his hand and telling him to hang on there, hang on. You can do this. And I kind of remember reaching across to Andy, and Andy is of course in a panic because he's not seen someone pass away. And I said, don't encourage him to stay. And he said, he just kind of was patting him and being there. He knew that we were there right through the end. He knew that we loved him and that he was right there. We were there, and he slipped quietly away and just stopped breathing. And we turned the oxygen off, and of course made the room incredibly silent. That oxygen machine, it was so loud for so long, and then him not there, and you just knew he was gone. It was like that presence or whatever before he passed away that was there was gone. The room was empty. So, and then shortly after that, because we had made several phone calls, We'd called Dr. Creek, we'd called Linda, and of course at this point he's gone. It's 8:45, quarter till 9 in the evening, and I remember looking at the clock, and it was exactly 8:45. We lowered the bed and took off all the oxygen equipment. And about 9 o'clock, Linda arrived and Dr. Creek arrived. And it seemed like everybody in the world arrived because we had made the phone call to Linda, and I guess Linda called everybody that she could think of that needed to be there as soon as possible. And Dr. Creek arrived and checked him out, and of course he was gone. And I remember we lowered the bed because it was up until this point he was practically setting up in bed. And we lowered the bed, and I think Andy and I even pulled him up in bed because he was always wanting to be pulled up in bed so that he was comfortable. But let's see, I guess very first person to arrive that hadn't been there was Naomi. She came in, breezed out. She just, it was obvious she was just not able to handle the situation. She didn't say anything hardly to anybody and just kind of came in and, I don't know, probably patted his hand or something. I don't remember if I was in the room at the time or not. But I tried to stop her and give her a hug, and that's about all she could take. And she took off, and she was gone. And then I don't remember when you came. It was a little
You
late.
actually called me.
Did I call you?
You left me a message, and I might have been.
That was afterwards, and
I
we all
called
went
back,
downstairs.
and I spoke with Adam, and
Yeah.
he told me he had passed.
Adam, I think, was
When I got there, actually, Dr. Welch was being taken
away, right.
by the funeral home. So that's when I got there.
Let's see, Adam, I think next to arrive was Linda and then Dr. Creek, and then people just started to arrive really quickly after that. And I know that, let's see, Kim was out of town and Kevin was out of town. And both of them had told me before that they were sure that they were going to be there when he passed away. That it just was something they knew that it was going to happen. And Kim did not find out until several days later. Kevin, everybody said, okay, call Kevin. You call Kevin. Nobody wanted to call Kevin, so I called Kevin, and I left him a message to call the house. And it was ironic because I think that it was the night that Kevin was supposed to work. Was it a Sunday?
It's a Saturday.
Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday night he passed.
I don't know. But I remember before I said, because he had one shift in the middle of 2 days off, or 4 days off. And I said, well, I'll take that if you take one later, then you can have 5 days off. And so inadvertently, I had talked him out of being there or being in town. So he was out of town. But of course, that was not intentional at all. Let's see. What else about that crazy night? I know I called Jim. And he came right over. Oh, I know. I called Ann, and Ann was there very quickly. And I'm glad because between her and unfortunately Susan had to work another shift at Hospitality House. So she left. And I have yet to this day to talk to her about, and even Andy, I'm the only one that's even spoken out about how he passed away. I guess they just haven't had the opportunity. Anne came, and Anne and I, and who else?
Nathan was around there.
Nathan came in and was just in shock.
Mhm.
He was just,
Adam was there.
it was Anne and Adam and I. We gave him a complete bath, bathed him completely, and dressed him. Because it had to be Adam.
Yeah, he was there when
Yeah.
we came.
And we dressed him, and so that he was bathed and dressed, and they wouldn't have to do anything when they came and got him. We didn't want him to leave the house till that was done. And I guess everybody came, and we all sat around and kind of did our little Hermie stories. And we all hung out until late. And then,
Linda brought chocolate.
that's right. No, Terry brought
Oh, Terry
chocolate.
brought chocolate.
Terry brought chocolate. Yeah, Terry was, everybody that was in town was there, I believe.
Yeah, we all felt compelled
Yeah, it was like
to come to the house. We
mhm.
had to be there.
Yep. I know when I left, I felt very strange because I was supposed to be there all night, and that was kind of odd. And then the next few days, the girls came down, and I stayed there so that there would be somebody else other than Nathan, because Nathan was a basket case. He was non-functional.
Remember that?
And I remember staying there and actually being there overnight without the monitor in the first night, because we always had the baby monitor, and the first night that I was there without that it was just, the house was quiet. It was just, just quiet. There was no presence. You could tell he was gone.